Good morning, friends. Today, our topic is intracranial complications of otitis media. Here, otitis media means acute as well as chronic suppurative otitis media. First intracranial complication we will discuss is about extradural abscess. Extradural means outside dura. So it's a collection of pus between bone and dura. It can happen with acute otitis media. Sometimes, in some cases, acute otitis media may get complicated to acute mastocytitis and subsequently it causes extradural abscess. Second cause is venous thrombophlebitis. And third is direct destruction of bone by cholesteatoma. How the patient will be? Patient will have mostly no symptoms, and in some cases patient may present with persistent headache to severe headache. He can have general malaise, low grade fever, and pulsatile purulent ear discharge. Diagnosis is made on contrast enhanced CT scan or MRI. Treatment will be with antibiotics and cortical or modified radical or radical mastoidectomy depending upon location and extent of the disease. Second complication is subdural abscess. Sub means beneath. So, in subdural abscess, collection of pus is seen between dura and arachnoid. In this, patient may have more severe symptoms and signs of meningeal irritation. Patient presents with headache, fever, malaise, increased drowsiness, neck rigidity, and positive Kernicks sign. Now, we will see this Kernicks sign later on. Patient also can have cortical venous thrombophlebitis and present with aphasia, hemiplegia, and hemianopia. In case of raised intracranial tension, ICT, patient will have papilloedema, ptosis, and dilated pupil. Here also diagnosis is made on CECT or MRI. Treatment will be lumbar puncture, but after confirming that CSF pressure is not high, only then we can go for lumbar puncture. It's a neurological emergency. To drain subdural abscess, burr holes or craniotomy is required, antibiotics to be given and mastectomy to cure the primary disease. The most common complication is meningitis. In meningitis, there is an inflammation of leptomeninges, that is pyometer and arachnoid, with bacterial invasion of CSF in subarachnoid space. Clinical features will be high temperature with chills and rigors, headache, neck rigidity, photophobia, mental irritability, nausea and vomiting. Two signs are to be seen in meningitis. First is Kernig sign. How will you elicit Kernig sign? Ask the patient to lie in supine position and flex his hip and extend knee. If you extend knee of one leg, patient will either resist it or other knee also becomes flexed on its own. So this is positive Kernig sign, because on doing this maneuver, meningeal irritation occurs, and when you extend knee joint, other knee joint also extends. Another sign is to look for is Brugge's sign. In Brugge's sign, patient is also lie supine, and when you flex patient's neck, due to meningeal irritation, his hip and knee also gets flexed reflexly. So this is also suggestive of meningitis. And tendon reflexes are initially exaggerated. Here also diagnosis is made on CECT or MRI. Lumbar puncture and CSF examination is required. On CSF examination, it is turbid, cell count is raised, protein level is raised, but sugar and chlorides are reduced. We will have to treat them with higher antibiotics and corticosteroids. Surgery is advised depending upon diagnosis, in which we can go for myringotomy and cortical mastectomy for acute otitis media, and modified radical or radical mastectomy for chronic suppurative otitis media. One more serious complication of otitis media is autogenic brain abscess. Cerebral abscess is twice more common than cerebellar abscess. Which organism do we find? We find Streptococcus pneumoniae, S. hemolyticus, Proteus mirabilis, E. coli, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. There are 4 stages for developing autogenic brain abscess. First is stage of invasion. Second is stage of localization. Third is stage of enlargement. and fourth stage is rupture of abscess or stage of termination. Here patient will present with high intracranial tension and present with headache which is worse in the morning, nausea, here vomiting will be projectile, patient will be having lethargy and stage may reach up to coma, papilloedema, slow pulse and subnormal temperature. Depending upon which area is having abscess, features differ. If patient has got temporal lobe abscess, he will have a nominal aphasia. Patient may have homonymous hemianopia, contralateral motor paralysis. If patient has got abscess in uncinate gyrus region, he can have epileptic fits. Pupillary changes are to be seen and patient may have oculomotor palsy. If abscess is in the cerebellum, then patient presents with suboccipital headache. He will have spontaneous nystagmus, ipsilateral hypotonia and weakness, ipsilateral ataxia, past pointing, that is with eyes closed. When you ask patient to touch his nose with the finger, patient is not able to touch his nose with the finger. Patient will have intention tremor and dysdiadochokinesia. Investigations required are X-ray skull, CT scan and lumbar puncture. For CSF examination, here glucose will be normal. Treatment for antibiotics, we should advise chloramphenicol and third generation cephalosporins, dexamethasone and mannitol to control raised intracranial tension. We have to give neurological treatment also and specific otologic treatment depending upon the type of disease, location of disease and action of disease. A very common complication is lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. It is also known as sigmoid sinus thrombophlebitis. If you recollect anatomy of mastoid area, you will remember that this sigmoid sinus lies posteriorly and it is in close contact with the mastoid air cells. So, in lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, inflammation of inner wall of lateral venous sinus happens and thrombus is formed. Here also we see 4 stages. In the first stage, there will be a formation of perisinus abscess. Small abscess is formed just near the wall of lateral sinus. Second stage is endophlebitis and mural thrombus formation. So, first the wall of sinus will be involved. Next stage will be of a thrombus formation, and when thrombus increases in size, it obliterates sinus lumen This will be the third stage, and it may cause intrasinus abscess. And fourth stage is extension of thrombus. It goes proximally into cavernous sinus and distally into jugular vein. How the patient will present? Frankly speaking, with the advent of newer, higher and better antibiotics, this complication is rare nowadays, and patient does not present with classical features. But if patient has got lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, he will present with hectic picket fence fever, that is irregular with one or more peaks a day. So temperature may rise up to 39 to 40 degree Celsius, and depending upon release of septic emboli, and it comes down. So this is known as a classical picket fence fever. Patient will have headache, progressive anemia and emaciation. We have to look for Greisinger's sign. What is this Greisinger's sign? It is a pitting edema over occipital region far behind mastoid bone area due to clots in mastoid emissary veins. So this is known as Greisinger's sign. He will have papilledema, and in lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, we can clinically diagnose by two tests. First is Tobeyer test and second is Robeck test. So what is this Tobeyer test? In normal patient or normal human, whenever you press internal jugular vein, that is IJV, then CSF pressure rises 50 to 100 millimeter of Fg, 50 to 100 mm of mercury, and when you release the pressure, it will come down to normal. But in cases where lateral sinus is thrombosed, even if you compress IJV, there will be no change in CSF pressure or very little rise in the pressure. But in some cases, this stage is false positive and false negative result. Like if there are already collaterals are developed, so even if you press the IJV, there won't be, though there will be thrombus, but there won't be any rise. So this is false positive. And in some cases where sinus is very small, so even if you press it, there won't be much rise in the pressure. So this test is not 100% perfect. You may have positive, false positive and false negative result, but still it does have clinical significance. And in Robeck test, whenever you compress lateral IJV, retinal vessels will be engorged. But if there is a thrombus in the sigmoid sinus, it will not have any effect on the retinal vessels. So this is known as Robeck test. Tenderness is also seen along jugular vein. We have to investigate by blood investigations, blood smears to rule out malaria, to rule out other causes of pyrexia. Blood culture should be done. CSF is to be examined. X-ray mastoid is to be taken. CCT will show delta sign. So in this, what is delta sign? Here, triangular area with rim enhancement. So the walls of sinus will be enhanced, but central area will have low density. This will be seen in posterior cranial fossa on axial cuts. So this is known as delta sign. A triangular area will be seen on axial cuts where rim enhancement will be there, but central area will have low density. Ear swab is also taken for culture sensitivity. Complications of lateral sinus phlebitis is septicemia and pyemic abscess in lungs and bones. It also gets complicated into meningitis and subdural abscess. It may complicated into cerebellar abscess, and if it goes further, it can cause thrombosis of jugular bulb and vein, and lower cranial nerves, 9th, 10th and 11th are also involved. Patient can have cavernous sinus thrombosis and otitic hydrocephalus. Treatment will be IV antibiotics, mastoidectomy, ligation of IJV, anticoagulant therapy, and blood transfusions SOS. One more complication is otitic hydrocephalus. Here we see raised intracranial tension with normal CSF. If thrombosis extends to superior sagittal sinus, it will impair the function of arachnoid villi to absorb CSF, and that is why intracranial tension raises. Symptoms will be severe headache, diplopia due to involvement of abducent or sixth cranial nerve, and blurring of vision. We will see papilloedema. Nystagmus is noticed due to raised ICT, and lumbar puncture also will show raised CSF pressure. Here, to reduce raised ICT, we have to give acetazolamide, corticosteroids, repeated lumbar puncture, sometimes lumbar drain, and lumboperitoneal shunt. Antibiotics are absolutely necessary, and mastoid surgery is indicated depending upon location of disease, type of disease, and extent of disease. I hope you have understood this topic well. Thank you so much.